If you want to get into property, here's 3 things I would recommend you do before you start buying. This can save you time and hassle in the long run, and it separates the good from the bad investors. So number 1 is location and demand. These fall hand in hand, because at the end of the day, what you've got is a location and the surrounding area and things within it that affect the demand. So if you've got an area like a town centre with schools, amenities, transport links, that will affect the attraction to tenants, for example. If you have a city nearby, for example, that will obviously impact the demand, because if you've got a city nearby, you're going to have a lot of people in tend to be wealthier areas coming in, and if they've got easy access by transport links, train stations, etc., that will easily allow them access to said town. So there's ways that tenants can come into these areas for cheaper rents, for example, like in the valleys where we operate in South Wales, where you've got Cardiff and Newport, which are half an hour away, for example. So the demand is very high, but it's also very attractive for people because they have local schools to go to. So from a tenant perspective, it's incredibly attractive, but from a general appreciation perspective as well, in terms of property prices, there's only so many houses in said location, and there's an increase in demand for the area because more people are flooding into it. So property prices increase, and you've got a good attractive area for tenants, which is why we love South Wales valleys for our areas, for the same reason. Number 2 is demand. So this is probably the most important aspect. The reason being is that when you're looking at a property, the only real things you need to look at from an investment point of view are the numbers. What you're buying it for, what you're renovating it for, your stamp duty, solicitor fees, broker, etc. And when you're looking at it, the most important aspect, from at least my point of view, that I see a lot of new investors make, you don't want to look at a renovation for what you want it to be to live in yourself. That is the core role with investments. Everything is based upon the exit. When I say exit, what are you going to make that property? If you've got a rundown property, are you going to renovate it to a castle? No, you're going to make it, buy-to-let for example, you're going to make it a buy-to-let spec for location, because every area you have within South Wales, for example, has a ceiling cap. So you only need to spend the renovation you need to make it the exit you need it to be. What I mean by that, you could go in and spend 50k on a renovation, back to brick everything to make it a castle, but you don't need to. You can go into a property, do the works needed to facilitate the exit. If you've got, a full renovation to be done, that could be a 30k refurb in South Wales, for example. The point being, don't spend more than you need to. Longevity is important, so you want to make sure you spend what you need to do, but don't spend money for the sake of doing it in the assumption of you wanting it to be what you want it to be. Do it for what it needs to be. If you've got a buy-to-let exit, if you're gonna renovate a rundown property to make it a buy-to-let, which is what we do in South Wales, then do it on the basis of the renovation matching that exit. Don't spend money for the sake of doing it, because what you're looking at as an investor is that property can only go so high property value wise. So if you're coming in to refinance at the increased value from the BR method, for example, by renovate refinance method, you've got to be careful with how much you're putting into it to make sure your return investment is still high to pull back out, because there's no point in spending 40 grand to increase the property value by 60 grand, where you could spend 30 grand and for the same effect. Don't spend money for the sake of spending it, spend it for your exit. Number 3 is equity. Equity, there's 2 ways to look at it. Number 1, equity can be secured when you purchase. So if something's worth 100k, you secure it for 80k, 20k of equity. There's also forcing the appreciation of a property in order to secure equity as well. So for example, you could have a property worth 100k, secure it for 80k, so 20k of equity, but you could also, if it's large enough, add a bedroom to the property. So you can force the appreciation and the value of the property up in order to create more equity on the back end, but that only really works if the actual value is possible to add. For example, if you can add a bedroom, if the property is large enough, if there's the right layout there, if you've got a high spec kitchen or bathroom, factor those bits in, talk to a property professional before doing these things in to make sure the actual money spent is worth it. If it is, definitely do it. Remember, every area has a cap, but equity is one of the most important aspects. I would genuinely argue that equity is more important than cash flow, in my personal opinion. Obviously, you want to build a profitable business when investing in property, but from a long-term aspect, your equity is everything, because your equity is meant to appreciate in the long run. That's one of the main reasons for investing in property, because property investing should be a long-term investment, hence why equity is so important. So equity can be secured when you buy, it can be secured when you renovate to increase and force appreciation of the property up. Again, force value up. There's these certain ways of doing it, but those are the 2 main ways. So look for value add, look for securing with equity, and talk to a property professional if you want to look into doing this properly. And also just to add, my name's Ryan Eastley. I've been investing in property for just under a decade now in South Wales. I live in South Wales, hence the accent, of course. And this video is something we share a lot of. We share a lot of projects that we do on our channel that relate to the sort of projects I've mentioned in this video. So if you want to see live action of exactly the sort of projects that relate, from bedroom ads, locations, projects in general that relate to this sort of video, be sure to check out the rest of our channel. We help over 150 people a year invest in property in South Wales. So if you want to start building a portfolio of projects that we actually relate to, that we do every single day, then be sure to give me a message or book in a call. I'll put a link in the description to the video to book in a call with us. Again, we help over 150 people a year do this, and it's our bread and butter. It's what I do for my portfolio. I buy about 10 of these a year. So book in a call with us if you want to have a chat about building your portfolio in South Wales, and look forward to speak to you all. And subscribe.